evening, everyone, and welcome to the English Lessons for All debate. Tonight, we will be discussing a very important and thought-provoking motion. Human cloning should be legal. We have an interesting debate ahead of us. First, the affirmative team will present their arguments, followed by the negative team. Then, each team will have a chance to rebut or respond to the other's points. Finally, both teams will deliver their closing statements. Let's begin.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Esteemed judges, fellow debaters, and members of the audience, it is an honor to stand before you today to passionately argue in favor of the motion. Human cloning should be legal. Our team firmly believes that the legalization of human cloning is not only a logical next step in scientific and medical progress, but a moral imperative that promises profound benefits for humanity. We contend that human cloning, particularly therapeutic cloning, offers unparalleled potential to alleviate immense human suffering. Imagine a future where debilitating diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or spinal cord injuries can be treated, or even cured, through the regeneration of healthy tissues and organs precisely matched to the patient. This isn't science fiction, it is the promise of therapeutic cloning, which could generate perfectly compatible stem cells for groundbreaking therapies, eliminating the risk of immune rejection. Furthermore, we advocate for the careful consideration of reproductive cloning in specific, ethically guided circumstances. For couples facing profound infertility, or those who carry devastating genetic diseases, the ability to clone offers a pathway to parenthood that might otherwise be impossible, or to ensure a child free from inherited suffering. This is about expanding reproductive freedom and offering hope where none currently exists. The fears surrounding human cloning are often rooted in misunderstanding and dystopian fantasies, rather than the carefully regulated scientific pursuit we envision. It is time to embrace the incredible potential for healing, understanding, and the advancement of human well-being that human cloning offers, under stringent ethical oversight. To deny this possibility is to deny progress, hope, and the very essence of human ingenuity.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Esteemed judges, fellow debaters, and members of the audience. The negative team stands firmly against the motion that human cloning should be legal. While my esteemed colleagues on the affirmative team paint a picture of medical miracles and boundless hope, we believe that the path they advocate is fraught with profound ethical dilemmas, societal risks, and a dangerous redefinition of human life and dignity. They speak of therapeutic cloning as a panacea for disease, promising perfectly matched tissues. But we must ask, at what cost? Therapeutic cloning necessitates the creation and destruction of human embryos, reducing potential human life to a mere resource for spare parts. This is not progress, it is an ethical quagmire. Furthermore, viable, ethically sound alternatives, such as induced pluripotent stem cells, iPSCs, already exist, and are showing immense promise without raising the fundamental moral objections inherent in embryonic cloning. As for reproductive cloning, the idea of a pathway to parenthood, or expanding reproductive freedom, this is a perilous journey into uncharted territory. It opens the door to the commodification of human life, creating individuals designed for specific purposes, thereby stripping them of their unique identity and inherent worth. What of the psychological burden on a child who is a genetic duplicate? What of the overwhelming statistical likelihood of failed attempts, deformities, and the exploitation of women to procure the necessary biological material? This is not about freedom, it is about control and an arrogant overreach into the very essence of human creation. The fears surrounding human cloning are not rooted in misunderstanding or dystopian fantasies, but in a deep-seated recognition of the grave consequences that arise when we disregard fundamental ethical boundaries in the pursuit of scientific ambition. Legalizing human cloning would not be an embrace of hope and ingenuity. It would be a dangerous step towards a future where human beings are manufactured, rather than born, and where our very definition of what it means to be human is irrevocably diminished. We urge you to consider the profound implications and reject this motion.
My esteemed colleagues on the negative team raise valid concerns, yet their arguments fundamentally mischaracterize the true nature and potential of carefully regulated human cloning. They speak of ethical dilemmas and societal risks, But we contend that to shy away from scientific progress due to fear, especially when immense human suffering is at stake, is the greater ethical failing. Firstly, on therapeutic cloning. The negative team speaks of the destruction of human embryos. We must clarify that we are discussing early-stage cellular clusters, not individuals. To equate these nascent cells with a fully formed human being is a false equivalency. The choice before us is not between life and parenthood destruction, but between utilizing this scientific pathway to alleviate the debilitating suffering of millions of existing human beings, or denying them that hope. While induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs, hold promise, they are not a panacea. They carry their own risks and limitations, and crucially, do not offer the perfectly matched, immune-compatible tissues that therapeutic cloning can provide, which is vital for many life-saving applications. To dismiss a technology that offers unparalleled precision and efficacy in favor of an imperfect alternative is to turn our backs on those in desperate need. Secondly, the negative team's fear-mongering around reproductive cloning, commodification, stripping identity, and creating individuals for specific purposes is alarmist and unfounded. A cloned individual is not a product, but a person with their own unique soul, experiences, and identity, just like identical twins born naturally or children conceived through IVF. The aim is not to design a human, but to provide a pathway to parenthood for those who cannot conceive otherwise, or to ensure a child free from inherited genetic diseases. We are not advocating for a free-for-all. Stringent ethical guidelines would ensure that such cloning is undertaken only in circumstances of genuine need, with the utmost respect for the dignity and autonomy of the child. The challenges of identity or psychological burdens are issues that society has successfully navigated with adopted children, donor-conceived children, and children born via IVF, all of whom face unique origins without their inherent worth being diminished. Ultimately, the burn-may-tear fears, articulated by the negative team, are not insurmountable obstacles, but challenges that can and must be addressed through robust regulation, public discourse, and scientific oversight. To ban human cloning outright is not a cautious stance, it is a regressive one that stifles innovation, denies hope to the suffering, and rejects a future where science can profoundly enhance human well-being. We must embrace our ingenuity, not shackle it with outdated moral anxieties. The potential for good far outweighs the manageable risks when approached with wisdom and ethical diligence.
My esteemed colleagues on the Affirmative Team continue to employ a dangerous redefinition of life and progress, attempting to mitigate grave ethical concerns with semantic evasions and an appeal to an unqualified notion of hope. They claim our arguments mischaracterize cloning, yet it is they who mischaracterize the fundamental value of human life and the very essence of human identity. Firstly, on therapeutic cloning. To dismiss an early-stage human embryo as merely an early-stage cellular cluster is a profound intellectual and moral sleight of hand. This is not a false equivalency. It is a deliberate disregard for the unique genetic blueprint and the potential for life inherent in that cluster. The choice is not simply alleviate suffering or deny hope. It is whether we are willing to create and destroy human potential as a means to an end, no matter how noble that end may seem. And while iPSCs may not be a panacea, they represent a truly ethical path forward, one that does not cross the moral Rubicon of creating life simply to harvest its components. To dismiss an ethical alternative because it is not perfect is to imply that only a morally compromised solution can be truly effective, a dangerous premise indeed. Secondly, the affirmative's comparison of a cloned individual to naturally occurring identical twins or children conceived through IVF is deeply flawed and, frankly, misleading. Identical twins are a natural occurrence. They are not created with a predetermined genetic blueprint chosen by human design. IVF helps existing gametes unite. It does not replicate a complete genetic individual. A cloned human is not merely a person with their own unique soul, experiences, and identity. They are a person brought into existence as a copy, fundamentally tethered to a pre-existing genetic model, raising profound, unprecedented questions of identity, autonomy, and potential objectification. To suggest that stringent ethical guidelines, will prevent the commodification or the creation of individuals for specific purposes is dangerously naive. Who determines these purposes? Who ensures genuine need isn't simply a euphemism for genetic selection? The psychological burden of being a copy, of being an echo, is entirely different from the challenges faced by adopted or donor-conceived children, whose origins, while unique, do not involve being a deliberate genetic replication. Ultimately, the affirmative's assertion that our fears are not insurmountable obstacles or outdated moral anxieties misunderstands the very nature of ethical boundaries. Some lines, once crossed, cannot be uncrossed without irrevocably altering our understanding of human dignity. This is not about stifling innovation. It is about ensuring that innovation serves humanity without diminishing what it means to be human. The potential for good does not and cannot outweigh the fundamental ethical compromise of manufacturing human life. Legalizing human cloning is not progress. It is a profound step into an unknown future where human beings risk becoming products, not people.
My esteemed colleagues on the negative team continue to present a narrative rooted in abstract fears, attempting to overshadow the tangible and immense benefits that human cloning, under rigorous ethical oversight, promises for humanity. They argue for a dangerous redefinition of life, yet it is their staunch refusal to acknowledge the nuances of scientific progress that poses the real danger to those suffering. Their fundamental value of human life seems to stop short of embracing opportunities to enhance it and alleviate its burdens. On the matter of therapeutic cloning, the assertion that calling an early cellular cluster an early-stage cellular cluster is a moral sleight of hand is itself a misdirection. The scientific and legal definitions are clear. These are not individuals, but undifferentiated cells critically, without a nervous system or the capacity for sentience. The potential for life argument, while emotionally resonant, must be weighed against the actual suffering of millions whose lives are currently diminished or threatened by incurable diseases. While iPSCs are indeed promising, to suggest they render therapeutic cloning obsolete is to ignore critical limitations. For conditions requiring large-scale tissue regeneration or complex organ scaffolds, or for repairing severely damaged neural pathways in diseases like advanced Alzheimer's or spinal cord injury, the precise genetic match and developmental robustness offered by therapeutic cloning-derived cells may be uniquely superior and crucial for successful, long-term therapeutic outcomes, mitigating immune rejection, which remains a significant hurdle for other stem cell therapies. We cannot afford to discard a powerful tool simply because another, less perfect alternative exists. Regarding reproductive cloning, the negative team's fear of creating a copy fundamentally misunderstands the profound impact of epigenetics and environment on individual development. A cloned individual, though sharing the same nuclear DNA, would develop in a different uterine environment, be raised by different parents, and live in a distinct historical and social context. They would, therefore, be just as unique and individual as naturally born identical twins, who share 100% of their DNA but develop into distinct personalities. The idea that a genetic blueprint predetermines identity or leads to objectification is a form of genetic determinism that has been widely refuted by modern science and psychology. We are not advocating for a world of designer babies or individuals created for specific purposes, beyond the deeply human and compassionate purposes of alleviating suffering, overcoming infertility, and preventing devastating genetic diseases. The stringent ethical guidelines are not naive. They are the product of decades of experience in regulating complex biotechnologies like IVF, organ transplantation, and genetic therapies, demonstrating our capacity to manage these profound issues responsibly. To dismiss robust ethical and regulatory frameworks as naive is to deny the capacity for human wisdom and oversight. Finally, the negative team's warning about irrevocably altering our understanding of human dignity reflects a static view of ethics that stifles progress. Throughout history, medical advancements, from organ transplants to artificial insemination, were initially met with similar moral panic, only to be embraced as profound enhancements to human well-being. Our understanding of dignity, life, and ethics evolves with our scientific capabilities and our growing compassion for human suffering. We are not advocating for a slippery slope into a dystopian future, but for a carefully managed, highly regulated pathway to profound medical breakthroughs. The evidence for the potential good, when balanced with thoughtful and adaptive ethical frameworks, far outweighs the speculative fears. To deny this potential is to deny hope itself.
My esteemed colleagues on the Affirmative Team continue to dismiss profound ethical red lines as mere, abstract fears and static views of ethics, while offering insufficient evidence to assuage the very real and unprecedented dangers of legalizing human cloning. Their narrative consistently prioritizes a speculative, utilitarian notion of progress over the fundamental preservation of human dignity and identity. Firstly, on therapeutic cloning, to suggest that an early cellular cluster, a developing human embryo with a unique genetic blueprint, is simply an undifferentiated cell without capacity for sentience, is to deliberately sidestep the moral question of its potential and our responsibility. This is not about sentimentality. It is about the ethics of creating human life, however nascent, with the express purpose of its destruction for parts. While we acknowledge the suffering of millions, the Affirmative Team has yet to provide concrete, irrefutable evidence that therapeutic cloning offers unique and indispensable advantages over ethically sound alternatives like iPSCs that cannot be overcome. To simply assert its uniquely superior robustness for large-scale tissue regeneration without detailed, comparative scientific data that demonstrably outweighs the ethical cost is not a compelling argument. It is an appeal to a future that remains largely theoretical and morally compromised. We must ask, are we so desperate for a perceived perfect solution that we will sacrifice our moral compass? Secondly, the argument that epigenetics and environment make a cloned individual just as unique as naturally born identical twins fundamentally misses the point. Identical twins are a natural occurrence. They are not the product of a deliberate human decision to replicate an existing genetic individual. A cloned human would be inherently distinct from any other human being in terms of their origin. They would be a deliberately manufactured genetic duplicate, not a naturally occurring twin. This raises unprecedented psychological and societal challenges. To claim that genetic determinism has been refuted does not erase the unique psychological burden of being a copy, an echo, especially when the potential for misuse, for creating individuals for specific purposes, whether for organ donation, specific genetic traits, or even a replacement child, is so glaring. The Affirmative's stringent ethical guidelines become dangerously naive when the fundamental act of creating a human being in this manner already opens the door to commodification and objectification. How exactly will these guidelines prevent a child from feeling like a second-hand version or being treated as such? Finally, the notion that our static view of ethics stifles progress is a cynical attempt to dismiss valid moral concerns. Not all historical moral panics were unfounded. Some represented necessary societal introspection. The difference between past advancements like organ transplants or IVF and human cloning is profound. None of those involved the creation of a genetic copy of an existing human being. We are talking about fundamentally altering the very definition of human creation. To suggest that our understanding of dignity evolves means we should discard fundamental ethical boundaries is a dangerous philosophy. We must demand rigorous evidence and concrete solutions to the profound ethical, psychological, and societal risks, not vague promises of wisdom and ethical diligence. Until such evidence can be presented, the immense potential for harm far outweighs the speculative benefits. We urge you to reject this dangerous motion.
We have heard a very engaging and thought-provoking exchange of arguments and rebuttals from both the affirmative and negative teams. We are now approaching the final stage of our debate. It is time for the closing statements.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Esteemed judges, fellow debaters, and members of the audience, as we draw this crucial debate to a close, the Affirmative Team stands firm in its conviction: human cloning should be legal. We have demonstrated tonight that the legalization of human cloning, under robust and adaptive ethical oversight, is not merely a scientific possibility, but a moral imperative that promises profound advancements for humanity. Our arguments have highlighted the unparalleled potential of therapeutic cloning to alleviate immense human suffering. We've shown how it offers the unique ability to generate perfectly matched tissues and organs, free from immune rejection, paving the way for cures to debilitating diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and spinal cord injuries. We have clarified that the early cellular clusters used in therapeutic cloning are not individuals, but undifferentiated cells, and to deny millions of suffering individuals the hope of a cure based on a misplaced equivalency is, we contend, the greater ethical failing. While other stem cell avenues exist, the precision and efficacy of therapeutic cloning remain uniquely powerful. Furthermore, we have advocated for the careful and ethically guided consideration of reproductive cloning, not as a means of creating copies or commodifying life, but as a compassionate pathway to parenthood for those facing profound infertility, or a means to ensure a child is free from devastating genetic diseases. We have firmly debunked the myth of genetic determinism, showing that a cloned individual, shaped by unique environmental and epigenetic factors, would be as distinct an individual as any naturally born person, possessing their own identity and soul. Fears of societal misuse, while valid, are not insurmountable. They are challenges to be met with stringent regulation, just as we have successfully done with IVF and other complex biotechnologies. Ultimately, the negative team's arguments, while emotionally resonant, are rooted in a static view of ethics and an undue emphasis on speculative fears. They offer no viable alternative to the immense suffering that human cloning could address. We must not allow fear to shackle human ingenuity and compassion. To deny the legalization of human cloning is to deny progress, to deny hope to the suffering, and to turn our backs on a future where science, guided by ethical wisdom, can profoundly enhance human well-being. We urge you to vote in favor of progress, in favor of hope, and in favor of the motion. Human cloning should be legal. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Esteemed judges, fellow debaters, and members of the audience, as this crucial debate concludes, the negative team stands resolute against the motion. Human cloning should be legal. We have demonstrated tonight that this proposal, far from being a moral imperative for progress, is a dangerous overreach that threatens to irrevocably diminish human dignity and redefine life itself. Our arguments have unequivocally highlighted the profound ethical quagmire of therapeutic cloning. It necessitates the creation and destruction of human embryos, unique genetic blueprints with the potential for life, reducing them to mere resources. This is a moral line we simply cannot cross, especially when ethical alternatives like iPSCs offer a promising path forward without such fundamental compromise. The affirmative team's claim that early cellular clusters are not individuals is a semantic evasion of a deeply serious ethical issue. Furthermore, we have laid bare the unprecedented and unmanageable risks of reproductive cloning. This is not about expanding reproductive freedom, or simply creating a unique individual like naturally occurring twins. A cloned human would be a deliberately manufactured genetic duplicate, raising profound psychological burdens of identity and autonomy. The potential for commodification, for creating individuals for specific purposes, whether for replacement, organ donation, or desired traits, is not a speculative fear, but a chilling reality that no stringent ethical guidelines can truly prevent. We cannot afford to be naive to the implications of such a monumental alteration of human creation. Ultimately, the affirmative team has consistently dismissed our profound moral objections as abstract fears or static ethics. But some ethical boundaries are fundamental, and once crossed, cannot be uncrossed without fundamentally altering our understanding of what it means to be human. This is not about stifling innovation. It is about ensuring that science serves humanity without sacrificing our very essence. The immense potential for harm, for creating a society where human beings risk becoming products, far outweighs the speculative benefits. We urge you to consider the irreversible implications and firmly reject this motion. Thank you.
Thank you to both the affirmative and negative teams for a compelling and insightful debate on the motion. Human cloning should be legal. Your arguments have provided much for us to consider. This concludes the English Lessons for All debate. We hope you all found it informative and thought-provoking.